Hello. Um, so many questions recently from people about a kind of touchy subject, both in and out of the world of physical therapy. And not touchy in like, I don't know, it's not controversial. But it's kind of like, what do we need to do to address it? What is the problem? And how are the different ways in which we can address it? And it's kind of it's so person specific, that there are no good answers, but there is sort of one place to start. And so let's just get into it and we can talk about that place to start. I mean, God, that's such a there's there's not one place to start. This is I'm here to offer a place to start, in discussing the pelvic girdle, and how we hold our organs in our body and our pelvis underneath our spine. Um, Full disclosure, I am not a women's health physical therapist. I am a general practice physical therapist. I work with the human body, in all of the ways in which it can be injured, stressed, pushed, pulled, poked. Having said that, I am not a pelvic floor specialist in the same way that I am not a neuro specialist or a pediatric specialist or a geriatric specialist. I treat and see clients who are mostly, um, they do not have a very specific deficit. Um, so, especially when it relates to the pelvic floor. Sure, I see people with like rotator cuff tears and joint replacements and, herniated discs. But when it comes to the pelvic floor, the clients that I'm seeing are not pelvic floor clients. They are not people who are, their primary complaint is, painful intercourse or painful urination or, um, large amounts of urinary leakage. The majority of the times that pelvic girdle instability, and when I say pelvic girdle, I mean sort of the structure around between the low back and the top of your knees, that beefy bowl that holds and moves our entire spinal segments, column, legs, everything, that bumper on our body that translates force through our shoulders into our feet and from our feet up into our neck. Um, I see people who have back pain and happen to notice that, sometimes they leak a little bit when they sneeze or they sit a lot. And so they're coming to see me for postural imbalances, and also notice that when they get up, they have some pelvic floor dysfunction. So I am not generally treating people for pelvic floor dysfunction. There is a phenomenal group of physical therapists that see that very specific problem, or that very specific side effect of having children. Especially, I'm not going to get on that soapbox, especially in this country where we generally overlook, um, postpartum women's health. But I do want to talk about some things that you could do for yourself if you are noticing that you are sitting a lot at your desk and, are perhaps having some pelvic girdle pain or deficits, or you're not, when you get up, it's a little bit slow and creaky, and you think, oh, maybe I'm not so stable in my base, or you have to adjust into your pelvis when you get into your base. I am by no means prescribing this as a cure all for pelvic floor dysfunction, and I strongly stress that if you have pelvic floor dysfunction, um, you should absolutely talk to your primary, talk to your OB, talk to your pelvic floor physical therapist. We have direct access in most states, which means you can just go right to the PT, and get it addressed and looked at. If you have questions about this stuff, please reach out to me. I have, some really great pelvic health physical therapists that I can reach out to and get some additional information for you, to you. all of the things. But in very general, when we're talking about addressing the pelvic girdle, the hips, the back, um, the everything in between, again, belly button to knees, I want you to take a hard look at where you spend most of your day. If you spend most of your day in a seated position, I can almost without a shadow of a doubt say that you're very tight in the front of your hips. You are very stretched out in your bum. You were very lax in your abdomen and tight in your low back. And most likely, because of all of that, really tight in the front of the shoulders and stretched out in between your shoulder blades. So stretch it, strengthen it, and see if that helps. So when I say stretch it and strengthen it, you're going to do a hip flexor stretch and then some straight leg raises on your back. And then you don't need to stretch your glutes, but you definitely need to roll over onto your belly and do some hip extensions. So lifting your legs straight up behind you. And get your butt to fire. Bridges are another great exercise to get your butt to fire. Clamshells, getting your hip rotators to work a little bit more to support that pelvic floor is always good. Rows, opening up your chest, squeezing your shoulder blades back, getting, if you've watched any of my videos or heard any of the anythings, posture. Posture is the key to it all. So line your ears up over your shoulder. I realize I'm like way back here, but think about getting that shoulders down and back, getting your chin to face the horizon, keeping your ears over your shoulders, maintaining that good posture gives you better range of motion, gives you more control in lifting, moving, and using your core muscles. Even if you're overlooking your abdominals completely at this stage and just focused on what's happening in sort of the pelvic girdle, which, yes, abdominals play a huge part in the pelvic girdle, but if you can get one on board, the others will come, or at least start paying attention. So, man, I feel like that was all over the place. Strengthening the legs, the hips, the butt will all help support your pelvic girdle and releasing some of the tension that you have in your hip flexors and your low back. Hamstring stretch is always nice. Will start to help realign your pelvis and your hips in a way that supports your spine. As you do that more and strengthen more, the muscle tissue lines up better, the joints line up easier, and things tend to be much happier where they're supposed to be. And so hopefully that will resolve some of what you have going on. If you have back pain, hip pain, you feel like your pelvis isn't quite underneath you when you stand up. When you get off the couch at the end of the night, you sort of have to walk into your body. And then once you're up a few steps, everything sort of settles in. So I would give that a try. If you are noticing that you are having pain with urination, pain with intercourse, pain with sitting in your pelvic floor, in the space between your vagina or your penis and your bum, in that saddle distribution on the bottom of your body, if you're having pain there, please, I cannot stress enough, reach out to a pelvic floor specialist, get it addressed, because when you have pain there, it's because things are tight or loose or aligned in a way that they really shouldn't be. And it's doable. It's muscles and joints. So as physical therapists, we can definitely help with that. And that's my 2 cents. I feel like those questions have come my way a lot more recently. And if you are having urinary retention problems, reach out to either a pelvic floor specialist or a primary care that can address it. And start with those exercises that I just gave you and see if that helps. There are times where it is just muscles that are not lined up well, because we sit so much, all of the sitting these days. And so those postural imbalances can lead to pelvic floor dysfunction. But if it's problematic for you, I strongly urge you to address it. Okay? Don't forget, if you have any questions, please reach out. All right. Bye, guys.